Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Darren. I'm the product training manager here at JSP, and I'll be discussing our topic today, which is the abbreviations and acronyms and getting behind the jargon in respiratory protection. So we're going to wait for a minute or two for a few more users who want to come online. So we'll do that. Information for yourselves. We will be sharing the presentation for those that can't be here today, so that's good. So you're going to get a copy. And hopefully there'll be time for some questions at the end. Now, when I wrote this presentation, it led me on and on and on. And so this is going to be 20 minutes. And having practiced, yes, it is 20 minutes. And I'm being given 25 minutes today. So we will hopefully have that. But if anyone knows me and you're out there, Daz, you can talk. And I know that. So I'm going to be a good boy and finish at 20. So I've had my hair and makeup done by the team. Thank you, everybody out there. I'll just wait for Ray to give me the nod and we can begin our. I'm on. Hello, everybody. Let me introduce myself. My name's Darren. It's Darren Metcalf. I'm the product training manager here at JSP. And so on conclusion of today's presentation, please do email me if there's any questions that spring to mind on conclusion of this, and I'll be very happy to answer them. Just waiting for my slide to come up. I'm going to press it once more. Hold on a second. Oh, yeah, we're here. Good. So I'm going to be cutting through the jargon on APF to WEL, because when we start discussing this, you can look online for any information about this. And usually that information can be written by people that are higher than myself. I consider myself the average man. So I'm here to break down some of those barriers and just make things speak easy for everyone. And that's what I plan to do today during this presentation. This is really slow today. Okay, here we go. So there's a lot of head scratching when it comes to the abbreviations in front of you or the acronyms in front of you, and it can be quite difficult. So I'm going to cut through that and give you my explanation, and an easier explanation if it can be done for everyone to understand, and take this into the workplace, because at the moment information is important for you all, especially with respiratory perhaps high on your list. We all know that RPE, respiratory protection, is the last line of defense. And yet I find it incredible that a lot of people put this at the top of their tree when really it shouldn't be. If we don't need PPE or RPE, well, let's find other processes to and ways around not using PPE. And what I want to remind you is something of this before I go any deeper on a deep dive, is the hierarchy of controls to implement an effective solution. Because if we can eliminate something, that's the best way forward. We can substitute it with a different hazard, so we don't have to wear RPE and PPE. We can isolate people from the hazard using engineering controls, and there are other maybe automated systems that we can adapt to remove people from those engineering controls from wearing RPE and PPE. Perhaps there could be administrative controls to change the way people work. Why do we always put the same shift on doing the same task when give those boys and girls a rest and allow others to do it? And that means those people are not subject to the concentration of the hazard perhaps you have in the workplace. So if you do look under those, you'll find there are many ways to skin a cat, because the last one we're trying to stay clear of, it's not always possible, is the personal protective side of life, wearing PPE and RPE. So the idea behind hierarchy of controls is to make our lives and your jobs more effective. And I know sometimes you can't be done, and PPE is the way forward. And there's a graphic of something that you've probably seen before. So where I want to start before we do our deep dive is the HSG 53. Those of you that are health and safety professionals out there, this is one of the best documents that you can have on file. If you're new to health and safety, or you're in the deep end already and respiratory protection is just coming into play for you, please listen to what I've got to say, because that document, HSG 53, at the top left of your presentation, is one of the best documents that you can have. I'll be opening that document up very soon, just to show you things that are, for someone like me, it's an easy read and it's not difficult. Even someone with a basic understanding of respiratory protection could pick the HSG up and learn a lot. When you get to do courses, as I've done, or you get to be a fit tester, as I am, you'll know that you'll lean very hard on documents such as the HSG 53 and the INDG 479. When it comes to respiratory protection, you have to know there are two buzzwords that everyone should be made aware of, and that is adequate and suitable. And I've got them at the bottom of the page there. So before we choose any products, think of those two buzzwords. It must be adequate and suitable. And if you read those strap lines there, you'll understand what I'm trying to say. So respiratory protection has to be adequate and suitable. It has to be right for the hazard, has to be right for the task, and right for the person's health. And I've put in little tiny squares up there, little things that will make you aware that all these things that I've put into the side of this graphic are important, because not only are those there that are screaming out to you are important, they're just basic. They're really basic stuff. And if we can't do that, we're doing things very, very wrong indeed. So when we look at adequate, it must be right for the hazard and reduces exposure to protect the wearer's health. There could be an oxygen deficient environment, so we need to select and identify the right product. When it comes to firemen, they can't use a normal respirator that we see every day in the workplace for oxygen deficient environments, because they need specialist products that have been identified to sustain life. And that RPE is possibly for this occasion, where you've got a fire and oxygen deficient environment, is self-contained breathing apparatus. So they've done the adequacy when they've got to select the correct fitting RPE. When it comes to suitable, it's right for them, the wearer, the task, and can they work freely. The suitable part, you'll define that as, is their products acceptable? Is it right? Is it fitting? Oxygen deficient environment in this occasion, it's suited to the work rate that they're involved in, because their pulmonary stress level may be very, very high indeed, or it may be low. I would imagine it's quite high in scenarios such as that's in front of you. When you wear this type of RPE that the fireman's showing now, it actually discourages impediment. So it allows them to work freely in all sorts of environments, and in the fogs, mist, outdoors, indoors, you name it. It also allows mobility, even though it can be quite heavy. There's a time when they have to take it off and still push that through underneath a small opening to get to the other side to put their gear back on. So everything that they choose to select that's important for them, their anxiety points, they've chosen and selected adequate and suitable. and as I discussed, pushing and pulling. And their product is tolerant to temperatures, vast, high and low temperatures. You could do the same. I'm not saying you're going to be a fireman, but I'm saying that all products will have their products of limitations, their pros and cons. And so it's up to you to identify what your anxiety is that you must overcome. And this is why you've got JSP and other manufacturers out there. And also you've got the HSG 53 that we discussed, which is a very good read. So if you're new to respiratory protection, those are the things that you can turn to, the manufacturer or the HSG 53 to begin with as an easy start. I've highlighted in yellow those products that are tight fitting, and most of you on this presentation are aware of this. The third from the right is the Power Cap Infinity, where the graphic to above that helmet shows that you have to be clean shaven, where the you don't have to be clean shaven, sorry. You can have a modest style, neatly trimmed, well-groomed beard. To the sides of that, the tight fitting in yellow will require the person to be clean shaven within the respiratory seal. And the seal area is around here. So there are many ways that if you wish to shave, you can still keep some of that. A bit like if you're in the military, whatever's under your berry is yours. However, what is ever hitting the seal is not yours anymore. It belongs to the mask, and you must be clean shaven in that seal. So with the graphic above, I think it's an idea to think about the things that you should be asking yourself and what's important to you, the questions you should be asking the manufacturer. And that is that RPE should be purchased upon its merits. So interrogate the detail. If the detail is not there from the manufacturer and your anxiety hasn't been answered, then please raise those. Because all products have pros and cons, they have positive and negatives. You don't know that, but they do. So we need to understand maybe the rest of it below. And that below will mean the weather conditions. Because no one likes to get wet, but the detriment, the hardest thing to wear respiratory protection is the detriment effect it will have on your filters, because they can't be succumb to moisture, liquid, rain, and so they have to be protected. We've got to know, are we working with high pressure hoses if that's your job? Because certainly on loose fitting respirators, what if you're jetting or using high pressure hoses, that you're pushing the hazard into a loose fitting head top? Whereas numbers 1, 2 and number 4 on your slide there, those products, they are tight fitting and they should generally be okay for those sort of things, but obviously a risk assessment will be required. But certainly the third item from the left, which is a loose fitting, jets and jettings may interfere and push the hazard into the loose fitting respirator. We can also look at duration. What's your time of wear? Task, the risk assessment. Do you need ATEX or DSER? Things that maybe the police require and military guys require, because when they do the press to talk button on the radios, those must be without electrical impulse. So is your environment something that's going to start a risk of explosion? Because I'm not going to start a children's party here by doing a balloon on the side of my head and stick it to a window, but certainly my shoes on the carpet could start a static spark that what you thought was safe, and the hazard is probably maybe combustible. So those other points below are things that you should be asking when it comes to RPE. Where this presentation is going are these points here, and I've put them up to talk about them generally. The first one I've put up is the required protection factor, the RPF. The required protection factor. This is the concentration within the workplace. So it starts with, how bad is your concentration? Is it this dark cloud where I can't see you? Or is it a bit more generalist and a bit more, nah, not too bad? But who's going to be the judge of that? Because the judge of that should be detection, identification, monitoring equipment. because with that, they'll understand that concentration hazard. And then we can look at the other measure, which is what is allowable for that person with the respirator worn. What is allowable with the respirator and filters worn, that concentration can be managed. So that is the required protection factor. And we will later on turn to the work exposure limit in the EH40 book, and I'll say that till last. I think let's just keep this simple with what I'm showing you on the screen, and I'll come back to that. So really I'm showing you the answer and then working backwards to the question. Then we have the nominal protection factor, which are guidelines raised by a laboratory many, many years ago, but usually laboratory tests are done with minimal amount of persons, perhaps. They could have been done on a head, on a dummy's head. And so the real world findings and results will probably be missing. So the nominal protection factor, it's okay, but it's a guideline. The one that we should be turning to, if it's there and you can get it, is this one, is the assigned protection factor. This is the level of protection that a respirator can provide, and that is for its types and class, because the respirator has to be the respirator of your choice and the filters attached to it, because that protection level will drop, and those protection levels are given numbers. Those numbers mean nothing to you now, but certainly later on we will look at the presentations. Those numbers will be something, because the higher the number, the better the confidence and integrity that respirator has. But in my slides below, we need to ask ourselves the questions to the manufacturer of what's important to you. And then we have a fit factor. You may have heard this when you're doing a fit test, where it's an assessment of the outside divided by the inside, and it gives us a fit factor of how well that product is protecting us. So really it's an assessment or a numerical result from a fit test, and that comes from a fit factor. So just to let you know that in MPS and APFs, they are country orientated, and I can only discuss those here in the UK because I don't work abroad, and we'll see some examples of that. So please stay with me when I'm saying that the APFs and MPS may change, but I'm here to look at those for the UK only. So this is where I want to break everything down a little more simpler for you. The required protection factor I've highlighted in the yellow. We have to know the concentration of the cloud that you are subjected to in the workplace, because you can have detection, identification, monitoring equipment put up to identify that for you. Once we've done that, we have to know the allowable exposure, the limit, the level that you are allowed, that a respirator will protect you in that environment. And without being highlighted below that, I've referenced something called the WEL, the work exposure limit. We'll find this in the EH40 a bit later on. But really the RPF is looking to reduce the risk of inhalation, ingestion, absorption over time. And this can be in the EH40, either short-term or long-term, to assess whether exposure levels are safe within boundaries. And we'll look at that in a moment. The others I've put down there, we'll discuss now, is the assigned protection factor. So the level of protection that a product can give you. And there I'll give you another example of what the wearer can reasonably expect in the workplace, reducing his exposure. And again, it's a numerical, it's a number rating that indicates the level of protection that a respirator provides. So if you want to take a screenshot or you want to take an image on your phone, please do, because these are better explained this way for me than I did sometimes reading other booklets. And these work for me, and I hope they work for you. We discussed that the nominal protection factor was laboratory tested under laboratory conditions. Personally, I would always follow APS for those numbers of protection value. The higher they go, the performance is higher. However, obviously you have to ask your anxiety from the manufacturer of those products of what you need to be best protected from and by. And then we have the fit factor that we discussed is the result from a fit test, where it's the concentration of the outside divided by the hazard on that may be getting into the product, and that ratio is defined as a fit factor. I've given some more depth of the explanation here on the assigned protection factor. If you read the first one, there are specific types and class of RPE, and their performance, if it's worn correctly, will live up to the APF level, because there are things that will reduce that level of protection, such as not shaving, you've got more than 8 hours of stubble on your face, maybe you haven't done the product correctly. So your APF value, that score that you need in that workplace is getting lowered because there are certain factors. There could be human factors, and usually they are human factors that relate to the level dropping of that performance of the product. So when selecting adequate and suitable RPE in the workplace, look to use the assigned protection factor. The APFs can be 4, 10, 20, 40, or 2000. Those that wear self-contained breathing apparatus that we saw in the beginning of the slides, can you imagine having an APF value of 2000 that the fire service have for oxygen deficient environments? Of course, that is so expensive. So why would someone working with just normal woodwork or dust want an APF of 2000 wearing SCBA? And this is where I'm going with. So all those products are numerically numbered. Higher, the higher protection, and that's why oxygen deficiency firefighters need a 2000. But we can come lower on that to what you deserve in your workplace. So I've given an example of what the APF 10 means for the one below the numbers. I've given the APFs. And also I've given the APF two different meanings, but they mean the same thing. So if you want to read that, you'll understand that this isn't difficult. We can make it difficult, but if we break things down, and hopefully this explanation does it for you, we'll get there. So I put it in a different term, this time in this graphic. If you read this graphic, we've already discussed this, and I can't break it down any more than I already have, but go over the same thing again, so I won't. But you understand that I would always prefer to work with APFs because I know my value, because I've done my top one there, the RPF. I've used the workplace exposure limit, or I've got people in providers that have hung up detection, identification, monitoring equipment in my workplace for them to tell me the concentration hazards, and then I need to find out the allowable level that I'm allowed to work in wearing a respirator. We discussed the fit factor already. As I've said in previous graphics, the NPS and APS are not standard in other countries, and I'm only going to talk about the UK that I am currently working in. And we'll see a short graphic in a moment to explain everything. So when we talked about APS, we talked about the value of the respirator. If you go to the left-hand side where the tick is, I've put be the best, because you will keep that APF value that is assigned to that product because you've adopted all those buzzwords underneath the tick. Those that have a maverick or cavalier attitude, the product APF value that is given will drop significantly because you are failing yourself and failing your employer with a maverick cavalier attitude. And those buzzwords down there, your protection will be lost or lowered. To the left-hand side there, the graphic, I put some images on there. We've got some FFP 1, 2s and 3s, P1, P2, P3 filters. And I've circled something there. You've got the countries above, you've got Italy, Sweden and UK, where they issued their APFs. And I've highlighted that of an FFP3. So in the UK, we understand the FFP3, if it's fit and worn correctly, properly fitted, without any cavalier maverick attitudes, you will receive an APF of 20. However, that's not always across the board in other countries, and that's what I wanted to show you. But after that, I'm going to steer away from other countries' APFs. To the right-hand side, what I've done is giving you some APFs of typical products that many of you will be using that are in front of me during this presentation. If you look at those APFs, they are telling you their confidence and integrity when worn correctly. So when you get to have identification monitoring survey, hopefully that survey will tell you, yes, that product is fit for purpose. If not, we have to look to the WEL, because the WEL, work exposure limit, will identify and choose our product for us. Or we can get providers in to do that for us. Let me go back one. I missed something there. At the bottom there, I've highlighted always strive to reach the highest APF where possible. I don't mean going to the SCBA. I mean, if you can afford it, always go an APF higher if you can. If you can. Again, I've done this. So the products on the left-hand side are JSP products. On the furthest right-hand side are some images. And there you can see that I've put the filter types in the center of the graphic, the APF value on the right-hand side. So when we look at this graphic, we've got the Power Cap Infinity, which is a loose fitting respirator. It's dust only, has an APF of 40. Brilliant. But look at the APF 40 above that. What other product has an APF of 40? It's a full face military style type respirator with dust filters. So they both have a really confident and integrity giving of well-being if you wanted protection of an extremely high level. But perhaps you don't need that level. Perhaps you need the other APF levels that are presented to you. The same thing but without the pictures. This time I'm trying to show you the graphic of the fire person, that they require an APF of 2000. Many of you won't need that. You'll need the graphic that's on your left-hand side. Remember, for the fire person, it must be adequate and suitable. The same goes for you in your APFs. It must be adequate and suitable, that numerical number for the product. Factors that will affect the APF value, that will drop it, are those shown in front of you. These are done by people, because people are people. Maverick, cavalier attitudes included. Your facial hair. People that have just come out of extreme dental work where they're pouting and the respirator now won't sit on the fatty tissues of the face because the pouting is now pushing the respirator away from their face. The policeman here with fitting skills. This policeman here probably wasn't taught very well how to put a disposable respirator on correctly, and he's wearing this as an ear loop mask when it should be a crown and a neck strap. So all these are factors that will affect your APF value of your mask if it's not fitted correctly and worn correctly. Training is another one. Every manufacturer has a different design and maintenance of their product, a different cut. A bit like going to get a suit done at Savile Row. Maybe that one is good enough for you. Perhaps you'd like to go to Matalan and choose a suit from there. But certainly the suit from Savile Row will fit you better than Matalan. But then again, you may just fall into Matalan's suit just as well as anyone else. But we all have choices to make. But remember, the APF value will be done on design and maintenance because it will drop, it doesn't fit you. Other combinations of compatible, try to seek compatibility of head safety helmets, ear defenders, safety spectacles, safety goggles. If that has an effect and moves the mask in any way, your APF value will drop. And for those ladies that wear cosmetics, the hardest thing for me to say is if you're going to wear respiratory protection, you must remove, I would suggest you remove makeup because the oils within those makeups make the respirator tend to move a little bit more freely than those that have a clean face. Again, we can look at the ones that we saw before and look at these ones too. There are things in front of you that you say, Daz, I agree with you. These are a challenge for any fit tester. These are a challenge for any employer who has an employee. So we have to look out for things that are fitting well. And the things that I'm coming up on the left-hand side are things that will cause you concern, because these will drop your assigned protection factors on your products, on your respiratory products. Not everyone has the same face shape. When it came to COVID, and those hospitals had a lot of Oriental and Asian persons working within them, and they did a great job, and they still continue to do so. But usually, when it comes to tight-fitting respirators, such as the one here, or the full face mask, that sometimes from different origins in the world, different face shapes, because the mask that I've just shown you, a mask like that, they are really manufactured for the European face shape. Now, JSP have been very lucky. We manufactured a short and wide in this product that worked very well for those in the NHS during COVID, and it embraced a lot of the Asian and Oriental the face shapes for those regions. So we were very lucky by that. But just be mindful that there will be respirators that will, from European face shape cut, that will hit other populations on the planet. But usually those people from other sides outside of Europe will have slightly varying different face shapes, which will be a problem for many employers. Again, if you gain weight, so if you look at my face now, I used to be a perfect medium wearing a respirator on a JSP size. I'm now a large, and I chose that because I can still do a fit check wearing a JSP Force 8, the half mask that I've shown you. I can do a confident fit check on a full face respirator from JSP. But as I've grown up through the years, can I say that my wife, hopefully she's not working, or watching, she's getting me ready for market. And so my face has changed. So now I feel much more comfortable in the larger size of those products. So please be reminded, since a boy, if you're still wearing a certain size respirator, there's a good chance you may now need to look for a larger size, and it may be more comfortable for you. And remember, it's the wearer, it's you, the wearer, that chooses your size. You may have a fit tester in front of you. You may have someone like me that knows the challenge of fitting a respirator to someone's face. With that challenge, I'd always seek a fit check on that mask on the person in front of me, but they will choose the size, not me. They choose the comfort as long as they can do the fit check. Yeah, and hollow temples, and I've got some wonderful pictures for you as well. Some more protruding cheekbones. Am I good to the last of that? Absence of teeth is another one. Here we go. So these are the ones that will affect your APF value. These are the factors that will hit, or you will find when you've got someone coming through the door that needs a respirator. I can't dwell on all these, but if you want to take a picture or you look at this presentation after, you'll see that all these people with all the written explanation underneath will be a challenge for you. The good thing is that there are charts out there by manufacturers. The chart on the right-hand side is from JSP, where we're suggesting in the black and white photograph that the persons with clean shaven can support the following products. And then we have those with stubble, moustaches, and those with a more fuller beard. But certainly I can't do Brian Blessed, who's the guy at the bottom of the picture, who's got a beard that is absolutely uncontrollable or could be seen as a hipster. But even JSP products, when it comes to loose fitting respirators and with a beard like he is showing there, we can't accommodate that type of beard. So even though you are looking for products that will take a beard, you must seek from the manufacturer what is the level of beard. You can talk about hobos, you can talk about, people like the wizard type beards. So please, if you can, exchange some photos with the manufacturer for them to identify what is suitable and what is not. Certainly for JSP and our loose fitting hoods and helmets in powered air, it will be neatly trimmed, well groomed beards, as you can see in our graphic to the right hand side. On the left-hand side is something that I located in the Americas, so NIOSH and CDC, which is on the American side for their standards of writing and protection and APFs and everything else. They have this wonderful graphic. And I brought this in on quite a few occasions where what I'm trying to tell you is when that seal hits the face, it belongs to the respirator. So that seal round here must be shaved. If it's inside the seal or outside the seal, it's yours. Whatever's under the berry, as a military man, is theirs. But I do like that graphic, and look at some of the names you can see on there. It's great, isn't it? I love it. Another one you can turn to, we discuss APFs and WELs, fit factors, required protection factors. Not many of you go to your MSDSs, your material safety data sheets. If you did, there's a wealth of information there. And I'm just going to pull up one that's important for me because I love my respiratory protection. I don't have any letters after my name. I don't have any honours. I'm just a man that loves this subject. And a lot of people, when they come to JSP, say, "Oh, Darren, can you look at my MSDS?" And I just return it sometimes to be truthful. I'm kind, and I will obviously honour the question. But you can find a lot of this yourselves of what protection value you require in the workplace by looking at your MSDS. I've given an example there on your left-hand side where I've hashed it in. And if you were to read that, that is so much valuable information. But if you look to the right-hand side of my graphic where I've got the JSP product, that our half mast, the Force 8, all those the written gestures underneath there, they're the other things that are found on the material safety data sheet. So why wouldn't you look at that for eye protection, for body protection, for hand protection? I'm just showing you mask and filters. So please, section 8.2, it's there and they do it for a reason. The way I would like to work is if you're working in a place and you're down, I don't know which way to turn, try to seek a provider who will offer you detection, identification, monitoring services. They will place devices in your workshop for a day, maybe a few hours, and then give you a report. That report will be of value to you to raise maybe your next risk assessment or perhaps standing operating procedures that need to be written in your workplace, because those results from these people will give you things that can be put in place, and they will tell you the APF value that you require. So if you're struggling to say, what do I do? You might have to spend a bit of coinage to get those people in, but they're out there, and that report is priceless. And the numbers 1 to 7, if you look down there, you can see that that report that is raised by those detection surveillance surveys, that numbers 1 to 7 is gold. Again, we could have looked to the graphic on the right-hand side, hierarchy of controls. Good, we're getting there. So what I want you to read is, or also look at the picture in front of you and read that strap line below. So why do we do that to ourselves? Because you wouldn't invite your kids in, your grandma, your granddad, your wife, you wouldn't do it. So why do you do it to ourselves? And this is a reason why you must be regimented in what you do, especially if it comes to shaving. If that's the respirator type fitting that you have to wear, people now have to become regimented and be stronger to hold up your hand and say, and pull someone aside and say, that's not right, fella. You know the drills, you know the score. So please, I want to see that. And, you can't help people but you can certainly persuade them and encourage them if they want it. Coming towards the end now, we discussed about the WELs, about how much concentration have I got in my workplace, because I need to know what is the limit that I can have that is allowable for me with a respirator on, that I can wear to be protected. So once I know that cloud or concentration value, I can then interrogate the workplace exposure limit booklet. And that booklet's called the EH40. I don't use it very often myself. I have done, but it's infrequent, I must say. But it's very good at identifying or listing certainly substances and materials from A to Z that maybe you're working. If you don't have an MSDS or a cost data sheet, section 8.2 that we looked at, then certainly we can look at this, or again, look at the way out, pay some coinage and get your air surveillance monitoring done. Let's take this a bit forward now. So workplace exposure limits, and they are a limit, and I'm giving you an example here. Let's say I need to understand what my concentration value is in the workplace. This is a number given by, let's say, detection equipment that's made available to me, for example, and it's 350 parts per million. So I need to find the toluene that is the problem for me, the substance, toluene. Then I find toluene and it says to me, Darren, it is 50 parts per million to be, and it will reduce the exposure above the concentration to a manageable, practical level. I simply do a sum. It's 350 divided by the 50, which is my practicable level or limit not to go over. And when I do that sum, it gives me a number 7. And that number 7, if you look at your protection factors, the numbers, you will not find a number 7 there. I'll get those up now. So the number 7 is not there. I've had to highlight number 10 for you. So number 10, so you would have to identify a respirator that offers the numerical number of 10 to work in the situation as an example that I've put in front of you. And by that, we can then look at different types of filters to identify which filter we need. Do we need organic, inorganic? And then we can choose our filter of choice. So the workplace exposure limit works in conjunction with required protection factors. We must know the cloud, we must know the substance, and then we must know the APF value given from the sum that I've put on the screen. And looking a bit deeper, there's your toluene. And the fit factor that we discussed. I did this first of all, and many of you are going through something called a fit test, where you use devices like this below, where there's a ratio of outside divided by leakage inside, and that ratio is giving you as a numerical number or a fit factor. And we have to know that it's confident and gives you integrity in the workplace. That number given by the fit factor, is that high enough for you to be working? And obviously these products will give you a fail or fit or unfit or pass or fail. So it's worth doing, very much so, and it's law. To summarize, here we go. So all those abbreviations apply to RPE. Make sure the mask and type that you choose in the workplace and for your occupation is the right one. Obviously, there will be alternative masks that you can choose. Understand the APFs and level of protection that you can reasonably expect with a properly fitted and correctly worn respirator. I'll let you read that bottom one. And ladies and gentlemen, that is me. This was going to be 20 minutes and I have to apologise, but I love this subject. Please excuse me, enjoy your day, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Until next time, thank you everybody.